So, how you been since I saw you a week and a half ago?
Good.
Good. All right. Well, like I said, the microphone
like
is...
we did. Let's just open the floor right up.
Absolutely. Yeah, we have a microphone right there. So who would like to be our first question?
Thanks for being here, by the way.
How you doing, Mr. Majors? My name is Wing. I am a massive fan. $6 Million Man was the superhero, I think, show ever. Do you think it actually inspired many superhero shows?
The 6 million inspired
Oh, I thought you said spidered.
Oh, no, inspired, not spiders.
Inspired other shows? I don't know. Probably this was very early in the genre of, this could be a big franchise type of character. In fact, they are going to do the $6 Billion Man with Mark Wahlberg coming up. They're writing the script now, so maybe in the next 2 years or so it'll get out on the screen. But inspiring the other ones, listen, studios come up with all kinds of stuff, and everything is rebooted anyway. There's not much that's new anymore.
Very true. Thank you.
Thank you. Like the cosplay, by the way.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Anyone? Okay, we got some people coming up.
Yeah, if anybody's got questions, just get in a little line there, and we'll get through you as quickly as we can. And
hello, young lady.
Make it as painless as possible.
Hello, Mr. Majors.
Hi.
My name is Mary, and I have a question about Big Valley. When it was aired, I don't know if there was a lot of reference to illegitimate children. Was that a big sticking point in publicity or in playing Heath?
Well, it was that was in the '60s, and of course we only had three networks, and words were carefully chosen back in those days, a little more than they are today, and the word actually, I had to say in the show, was the first time the word bastard was ever said on television. It was written that way, and when ABC saw the script and they read that was in there, they wanted it changed. They wouldn't agree with it. So there was, it was a way of saying, I'm your father's illegitimate son. It didn't have the same effect when I'm talking to the family. So anyway, after a while, ABC relented, and it was the first time that word was used. I was your father's bastard son was used on television. So it was quite a shock for at that time. You got to realize it's 1964.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sarah, and I have a question. What was your favorite episode of The Big Valley? Do you have one that stands out?
Well, everybody always asks me about Bigfoot. We've talked about Bigfoot before. Bigfoot, played by Andre the Giant.
She was asking about Big Valley. She asked about Big Valley.
Oh, well, the Big Valley. That was even so further back that they're hard to remember. You're talking 60s episodes, but you know the actor Bruce Dern? Well, I think I've killed him about 4 times in that series. There was one episode that I was buried under a wagon in the mud, and Stanwyck went to find help, and instead she found him, and he wasn't very helpful. He was a bad guy. But I always remember that episode because I had to lay in that mud all day long, and they kept pouring more water on it to keep it fresh, and I was just freezing to death. So that episode stands out. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The Bigfoot's my question.
The Bigfoot.
The Bigfoot question.
Yeah, here we go.
All right, we'll go right to Bigfoot. Bigfoot was Andre the Giant, a very gentle man who was a wrestler from France, and he was gentle. He loved to cook, and he had a restaurant in France. And as I told Patty one time, I said, we were doing an episode with Bigfoot in the woods, and it was a hot and sunny day, and he was supposed to pick me up and throw me about 5 feet or something, and so we were into that scene, and he picks me up and he throws me from here to the speaker over there. And then he comes and he's supposed to run and take a big flying leap and land on top of me, which he does. And I'm laying there looking up, and it's the sun is bright, and all of a sudden, the big cloud comes, Andre the Giant, and I think I'm going to get crushed. And anyway, he did not touch me. That's how great these wrestlers really are. They make it look so real. But to go on with that really quick, I'll tell you a funny story. That Andre, since it was a hot day, he loved his beer. They would always have a six-pack, like right here, when he would sit in his chair, and they were changing the camera around. So he would drink 6 straight beers and crush the cans and drop them. And we watched him all day long, and we never saw him go to the bathroom. And so the next day, there were some stunt guys that were always pulling pranks, and I think they put a Lasik in his beer. That's like a water pill that makes you go tinkle. And he still didn't go. Even after all the beers he drank all day, we never saw him go. His kidney must be about this big. But I wouldn't want to be the wardrobe lady who had to check that suit out at night and get it ready for the next day. Anyway, that's the Bigfoot story.
Yeah, you pretty much answered the question I was going to have. And also, I think you had the only non-fuzzy picture of Bigfoot that exists.
Yeah, that's true. I was walking him that day.
My name is Matt, and one of my favorite movies is Out Cold.
Yes, sir.
And I loved you as the villain. It was spectacular. Did you have a lot of fun playing the bad guy?
I had fun
with those hooligans,
except for the last scene in the movie where you see me going down this slope,
yeah,
the snow slope in a outhouse. They locked me in an outhouse and turned it over and stood me sliding down the slope. So that was a very funny movie, a comedy called Out Cold. That it was a snowboarding picture, and it was a cast of about 6 or 7 guys that were young guys, and they were all just funny. If you know Nick
Galifianakis, yeah.
Yeah, that was one of his first films.
Yeah.
And he was in that, and he was very, very funny in that thing. And they got him drunk one night and a few beers, and they put him out in the snow, and they took some honey and put it somewhere in an area, and the bear comes up, and you see him waking up to this bear there, and it was quite a scene. But that's in the movie. If you ever see the film, there's some funny scenes in it.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, you've had a long career. You've worked with Linda Evans, Farrah Fawcett, and Heather Locklear. Which one's the best actress to work with?
Acting-wise? Well, I was married to one of them.
Yeah.
You know what? They were all very new. I mean, that was Linda Evans' first job. In fact, when I went out for the audition for the role, they narrowed it down from 500 guys to about 3 of us, and I think it was me, Dennis Hopper, and Burt Reynolds. And I did a screen test, and they narrowed it down to me. Anyway, they asked me to do one more test, and that was with Linda Evans. And she hadn't done anything before that either. So anyway, she got the part to play my sister. And Farrah did a couple of shows. I started her career in Owen Marshall, Counselor at Law, a series I did way back. And I got her in as my kind of a reoccurring girlfriend. So she did 2 or 3 shows. And then even in 6 Mill, she did, I got her in 2 or 3 roles there, and that started her career. So you got to say, all of them were very green. So you can't say they were fantastic actresses. They became better actresses as they went along.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, Ladybug.
Hi.
Whoa. Hello?
I just finished season 2 of Ash versus the Evil Dead.
Yes.
And I'm really curious, is it true that they always had a spare bucket of blood somewhere just in case they didn't have
Yeah, and in case they didn't have enough blood. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I'm sure that if you've ever seen the kids talk about it, I refer them to as kids, the 2 young actor and actors that's in the show. They're the ones who get the blood most. So, yeah, they always complain about them. They get sprayed with the blood from the chainsaw or something. If there's not enough blood, they'll bring in a bucket and throw it on them at the end. There's a lot of people, have any of you seen Ash vs. Evil Dead? Is there a few?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, great. I've done the show, the second season I was in, 3 or 4, 5 shows. and they killed me off twice. And they brought me back, and then they killed me off again. I mean, they just keep murdering me. They keep bringing me back, but because I guess I die good. But there's a little secret. I heard that, I've been asked if I'd be back this next third season, and
That was my other question.
I figured that was coming. And I know you're not going to tell anybody, but I will be back.
Yay! Woo! Thank you.
Hey, Ladybug. Here you go.
Hi, I'm Claudia, daughter of the first guy that came up.
Hi.
And my question is, what was your favorite movie to act in? Like, was the cast pleasant? Like, how did you like the acting generally?
Well, my first big movie that I did introducing me was a movie called Will Penny with Charlton Heston. It was a Western. I think it was probably the best performance he ever did. It was a wonderful show, wonderful movie, and you always remember the first one, and it was a very good film. There are a few others, but the first one's always the best.
Hey, here's one for you. Whoop.
What are you paying these people?
Well, they're in costume.
You're not showing, I'm not saying any paper stuff. All I see is Tootsie Rolls.
You want one? Well, we haven't got a question. May I ask one? Could you tell us about working with William Castle in Straight Jacket?
Well, the first thing I got to tell you is that let's get this gentleman
he just showed up.
Standing this whole time.
Well, I just got up, so I was going to listen to that first. But I actually looked through your credits and saw you were in Clam Bake, but uncredited.
Yeah. Well, yeah. My brother Elvis was in that, and he wouldn't give me any credit. He always, if I did have a credit, it was called Double Trouble. He called me Double Trouble. We were great friends, and we used to play a lot of football together and hang and play pranks on each other. So he's quite a fellow.
That was very cool. I just thought that was amazing to see that.
Yeah, well, what happened was that I think that was one of the first times that I met him. He was shooting a movie, Clam Bake, on the same lot. Well, it was the producers of the Big Valley actually were producing that film. So they told me to come over, and they wanted to introduce me to Elvis. So, but before I met him, I saw him on the set he was doing a scene with Nanette Fabre at the bar, and he was trying to do this lovey-dovey pickup thing, and I noticed in the background there was a bunch of tables, and the waiters were dressed with like the Shriners hats, little tassels and things, and
the fezzes.
Kind of a funny outfit. So I went to the wardrobe person, and they gave me an outfit, and the makeup people gave me a mustache. And so when they're shooting this thing, I walk in behind Elvis and Shelley, and I'm cleaning the table. And naturally, I knock over every glass that's on the table and drop a lot of silverware, and they finally, it's cut, and he looks, he just didn't look. But take two, I did the same thing. Knocked everything up. After take three, he finally turned around, and he looked, and then he recognized who it was, and he said, "What the hell are you doing there?" Anyway, they did take four, and they kept it in the film. So I'm back there cleaning tables, cleaning up after Elvis,
That was awesome.
Okay, thank you. Oh, now I have a line again. Okay, cool.
Good afternoon, Mr. Majors.
Good afternoon, sir.
What was your favorite part of being in The Fall Guy?
Wasn't falling down. I wish I had used my stuntman a little more. In fact, in my career, even in Big Valley and 6 Mil and Fall Guy, I wish I'd have used him a little more. I wouldn't be as slow as I am now. The knees give out a little bit. But The Fall Guy was probably my favorite series out of all of them I've done. And it was more, the character was more to me personally, and so it was a very easy part to play. And it was just a lot of fun, and I enjoyed all the guest people we had, always wonderful guest stars on that show, and so we all got along great.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, Lee. How you doing? I just had a question on the $6 Million Man episodes, specifically with Lindsay Wagner when she crossed over as Bionic Woman. How come they didn't develop those stories more? It just like she lost her memory and she fell off. Do you remember those episodes?
I'm trying to remember myself. The first episode she did, you mean?
Well, one of the episodes was that she was in an accident and she had lost her memory. I think
I think that was when they made her the Bionic Woman, right? I mean, she was supposedly. I'll tell you how it happened real quick.
Yeah.
I had done the show for 2 years or so, and I still had not had a love interest, right? It gets a little boring looking at those hairy-legged guys on the set all the time with the crew. I told that to the producers. I said, I'm tired of looking at these guys. Get a love interest in, because the audience, they like to see ladies in the show. So they wrote this part for a young girl to play my girlfriend, who was a tennis pro, and so we kind of met, and she had this tremendous accident, and that's when they turned her into the Bionic Woman. And so after she had stayed on my show for the rest, did a bunch of my shows, and then we spin her off into her own series. And then, you know how the network and the studios are. If you like ice cream, they're going to give you a quart of it. If you like a cone, they'll give you a quart, because then they bring a dog in. They want to make him bionic, Max. So I said, look, I'm not having no bionic dog on my show. You take that over to the Bionic Woman and put it on her show. And that's where it ended up. I wouldn't have no part of it.
Okay, thank you.
Now, in response to your question, though, in the films you made, they continued the story. She did get her memory back. So track down those if you haven't seen them.
They gave her everything back. Her memory and her hearing. Gave her ear and her legs and one arm. And so
the continuation you were looking for, it's in those movies.
Oh, is it? Okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, my name's Kim. I met you earlier, Lee.
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
God bless you. I remember you.
Yes, God bless you too. I had a question, but it was already answered before, so I had to think of something on the fly. So my question on the fly is about your stunts. Did you perform your own stunts in The Fall Guy and all the other movies you did? Or?
Let me just say I did about 80% of my stunts all my entire life.
Wow.
And that was enough. Like I said, nowadays I wish I'd have used my stuntman more. But I did all the stunts mainly because it saved a lot of time. Because if they use a stunt guy, they still have to film a lot of it back over again with you in it, and to tie it in. So it saved time. I had a stunt guy that was a little older, and I happened to just come out of college football, and I was pretty an athlete. So it was fun, and also when you're young, you feel like you're invincible anyway. So it just made the day go faster, and so that's why I ended up doing them all. And but I never did one that I was afraid that I would, injure myself, because I'm not that stupid. But you have to have a little bit of stupidity to do them. But so I always had my stunt guy choreograph whatever it was, and then after we would do that if we had to do it again, and if it was a stunt that he would normally get an extra little pay for, I made sure he got paid for it also. So I never took money from the stunt guys. They got paid, and they did well. So.
All right, cool. All right, thank you for answering my question.
Thank you.
Mr. Majors, how are you? My question is...
I have to ask you to turn that off.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Majors, well, this is loud. Let me step back.
That's cool.
Growing up, I grew up watching The $6 Million Man and The Fall Guy also.
Yes, sir.
So when The Rock came out and he first did that eyebrow move, my thing was, that's not his move. That's his,
well, he admitted
Lee
that.
Majors.
I met Rock,
So-
and he admitted that he stole it from me. He said, I saw that, I got to have that. So, and it was announced, and he's supposed to be doing the remake of The Fall Guy, and they're writing it for him. That's been out last year. The news came out, and they're writing the script on that one too. And he'll be playing that particular part of Colt Seavers in The Fall Guy.
Oh.
Wow.
Hope not. All right.
Cool. Thank you.
You were awesome. You're the best.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, Mr. Majors. I'm glad you're here. I'm a huge $6 Million Man fan. I'm also a big fan of the soap opera Dallas. So on that note, what was it like it was great to see you on that show, and what was it like working with Linda Gray?
It was great. Linda Gray she's one of the professionals, and she's been around a while, and she was great to work with. My friend, I did it because my friend Larry Hagman, who happened to also be one of my neighbors in Malibu, where I lived, and we were close friends, and he wanted me to do a show, and it was only months before that he passed away that he called me and he said, I think we're going to get you in the show. Would you do it? And I said, sure, I'd do it for you. And then, of course, he passed away, and I thought, well, that's the end of that. And then the producers called me later to say, we want you in the show. Larry wanted it to happen, and we're going to make it happen. So that's how that came about. And I just thank Larry for the job, and he was a sweetheart. I wished I'd had a chance to work with him, but that never happened.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hi, Mr. Majors.
Sure.
During the 70s, you were pretty much the hero of just about every kid in America. And I was just wondering, did the popularity of the show take you by surprise when it happened?
Well, when it happened, I don't know when it happened. When you're working every day, you're in the studio every day, 14, 15 hours a day. Then you go home, you come back, and weekends you hide out and rest up for the next week. And back then we were doing a lot more shows than they're doing now. Back when I started in the Big Valley, even up until through the 70s and 80s, there was only 3 networks. Mm-hmm. So it was very competitive. But just when you're working, you don't know how big a show is. You see the ratings are pretty good, the top 10 or top 5, but I never thought anything of it about how many people that would have been until probably maybe the last 10 years, maybe 15 years that I started traveling around the world more because I had the time, and I was a little shocked by the amount of coverage that show brought around the world. I mean, people were coming up to me and saying, there was only one TV in the village, and it was way down, and we all had to gather there on a Friday night. It was the only TV they had. So, it was amazing. But I think it started a phase for the prosthetics that we, the limbs and stuff that we have now, that our servicemen can come back and we can put things on them to make them whole again, make them run again, and even now we're into doing the transplant of an eye. They call it a bionic eye. The hands, everything. And I think the show brought that awareness to people, and it said, that's possible. We can do that.
Well, you were definitely a hero to a lot of kids that grew up in that era. So thank you.
I never did any of these Comic-Cons until the last few years, and so you see, I never got out to see you people, and I didn't know that. I'm grateful for people who come to my table and say, I did this because of you, or I went to the service, I went into technology in that field we were just talking about, and it's amazing to how many people it's affected, and I'm very grateful for that.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I love your shirt, by the way. Hello again.
Hello. I was wondering, what is your favorite movie action star present day?
And today?
Yeah.
I like Wahlberg. I like The Rock, and there's a few others. The kid on Shooter, Ryan Philippe. Yeah, Ryan Philippe. I just met him the other day back in L.A., and a nice kid. And then I just read where he just broke his leg.
Oh. That's not good.
So I don't know what that has to do with it. But, I grew up in an era where when I was little, my heroes were Roy Rogers, the old Western cowboys. That must be an 80-year-old clapping back there. but then I got into the point where my real heroes also were Steve McQueen and Paul Newman, and I got to meet both of those guys and hang out with them, and they were truly great guys. It's always great when the person you idolize turns out to be a good guy, and I hope I've been able to do that, but we'll see. Thank you. Thank you.
You have, sir.
Mr. Majors, good
Yes,
afternoon.
sir. Thank you, sir.
As a kid growing up in the 60s, my heroes were always the test pilots. Scott Crossfield, Chuck Yeager, and
I
so
knew
on.
Chuck Yeager, yeah.
Yeah, well, that was kind
I
of
hunted with him a lot in quail hunting in Oklahoma.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about that. But my question was, seeing as your character on $6 Million Man was based on an Air Force officer, do you ever get any ribbing from Air Force officers about your character, or did they ever?
Oh, that's what I was kind of trying to say in the last question here is a lot of servicemen, Air Force people, and even some of the astronauts have said that to me, that they got their inspiration by watching The $6 Million Man, which I'd always thought was really amazing.
Did you ever talk to Colonel Peterson, who was actually?
I did. I got to meet
Okay.
Peterson. He was the, I hope it's my agent. I got to meet Mr. Peterson. He was the fellow who's in the actual crash at the beginning of the show, in the opening titles. And if you see that crash, you'd think that nobody could live through that crash. But he did. And the only thing that he came out of it, he lost an eye. And it wasn't really from, naturally, maybe the accident itself. It was from infection that he got in the hospital. And that's the only thing that happened to him. But he was, to me, he was a hero coming out of that crash alive. It was quite a deal.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hello. Thanks again for coming out. It's great to see you. And not only did I get to meet you, but you helped me discover the hidden secrets to my DVD box, because I went upstairs and played with it after we were at the table, and I got it to work. So thank you for that. But my question is, with all of these remakes of the classics that you were in, are they keeping a space open for cameos for you to pop in so we can see you again?
Oh, you know, sir, I have nothing really to do with them. It's outside people who are doing these films, and if they are grateful enough to offer me a little role, I'd be happy to do it. But I'm not out there chasing it, but if it happens, I'd be happy to do it. You know that.
Thanks again for coming out.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Majors, it's an honor to just be able to talk to you. I grew up watching $6 Million Man as a kid, really loved it. My question is, there's some pictures and stuff of you recently getting together with Lindsay Wagner doing some stuff together. I was wondering how it was like to work again with her.
Oh yeah, we did a little movie in Vancouver. We think it's going to be a Hallmark Channel movie. We don't know what network it's going on. But yeah, and if you know Hallmark Channel movies, they're kind of fluffy, romantic things anyway. So at least I didn't have to do any stunts. So yeah, I don't know when it'll be out. We just finished it. We did it all through the month of May. I think that was, so it takes several months for them to get out. I'm sure there'll be some sort of announcement on it. But thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hey.
Hi, Mr. Majors, Inger. Nice to meet you. Again, I grew up with $6 Million Man also. Midnight Train to Georgia. What's the story behind that song with you and Farrah?
Well, there was a wonderful friend of mine named Jim Weatherly. You can look this up, Jim Weatherly. You can Google him and find it out. But when Farrah and I first met, we were dating and going together, and she was going to I had to take her to the airport, and I asked Jimmy if he wanted to tag along, and so he went with me, because he asked her what flight are you taking, and she said I'm taking the midnight plane to Houston, and he had a band back then and recorded music, and a great singer, kind of on the side, kind of like Elvis, and he's a great songwriter. So anyway, he came to our place a few weeks later with his guitar, and he played a song, and it was a midnight plane to Houston. Well, when Gladys Knight wanted to record it. She said, Jimmy, you know, we don't go to Houston and we don't take planes. So we changed the name and lyrics, and it became Midnight Train to Georgia. And that's the history of that song. That's how it came about.
Since no one's standing behind me, how did y'all do the sound effects? You know, when you're in the film.
How did the sound effect?
Don't ask me how they got that. Listen, every time I would, back then in those days, I'd go into a restaurant, and every bus boy, waiter were always over in the side going, and I'd be looking around, all right, who's the wise guy? Or if you wanted to go in a bar, the worst thing was, when was it? You want to arm wrestle? I'd say, not today.
So, Mr. Majors, I was watching a documentary on test pilots, and they interviewed the gentleman who actually had the crash that's in the opening sequence of the $6 million man.
Mr. Peterson?
Yeah, and what was interesting was he was actually watching the show and was unaware that it was him. It was his plane crashing.
Yeah, it was him.
He's got another one. He's got another one. Got a brave soul.
Well, listen, I've got to catch a plane anyway.
That's fine.
So about 2 months ago, I went to L.A. and I invited to the Saturn Awards, and they gave me a Lifetime Career Achievement Award. And thank you. And the only reason I'm getting to that is that it was only a few months before that I went on a casting meeting. And I went in and I sat down, and the young lady, the casting director, it was a young lady, and she was about maybe 30. And she said, "What have you done?" Well, I took a deep breath and leaned back in my chair, and I said, "You first." From then on, though, I'm carrying that award around with me if I ever have to go into another casting meeting. Put it right on the desk. 54 years I've been doing this. My first 3 television roles, I got killed off early. My first movie, Joan Crawford chopped my head off with an axe. It was a black and white horror film called Straight Jacket. And she taught me one thing, though. If you can't take rejection, you're in the wrong business. Then I would say, I enjoyed working with Barbara Stanwyck, because Barbara Stanwyck taught me a few other things about the business. She said, be on time, know your lines, hit your mark, and keep your mouth shut, and you'll go a long way in this business. And for 54 years, I've been doing just that. And for every job I ever got, I'd always look up here and say, thank you, Father. So with that, I'm going to say thank you all, and have a great day, and be safe.
Thank you for sharing this time with us, Mr. Majors.